Page 130, Psalm 95. Come, let us sing joyously to God. How else would you sing? Raise a shout for our rock and deliverer. Page 130. ranena l'Adonai Naria letzurishenu Nekadma fanav betoda Bizmirot Naria lo Nekadma fanav betoda Bizmirot Naria lo Nekadma fanav betoda Bizmirot Naria lo. Page 132. Or zaru al atzidik li'yishrei lev simcha. Light is sown for the righteous, radiance for the upright. Page 132.
Tzadik, zaru ala tzadik. Or zaru ala tzadik, zaru ala tzadik. Or zaru ala tzadik, zaru ala tzadik. Or zaru ala tzadik, zaru ala tzadik. Uleishrei lev simcha.
Page 138, we welcome the Sabbath bride with the words of Lech Chadodi, and we prepare our Shabbat. And this Chol HaMoed especially, we have prepared our Sukkah. The rain, if it allows us, we'll even enjoy it. Yes, Gary's like, we're going to try. Page 138, Lech Chadodi.
Lech Chadodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lech Chadodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lech Chadodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lech Chadodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lech Chadodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. עלייך נגלה, וחדודי לקראת קלה, בני שבת נקבלה, לחדודי לקראת קלה, בני שבת נקבלה, התנערי מעפר קומי לבשי בגדי תפארתך מעל יד בני שי והתהלכתי קרבה אל נפשי גאלה לחדוני לקראת קלה בני שבת נקבלה 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 לא תבושי ולא תגלמי מה תשתוכחי ומתמי בך יחסו אני עמי בני ובנתה הרלתי לה לחדוני לקראת קלה בני שבת נקבלה לחדוני לקראת קלה בני שבת נקבלה והיו למשיסה שעוזייך ורחקו כל מבלייך יסיס עלייך אלוהייך יגזוז חתן על כלה לחדוני לקראת קלה בני שבת נקבלה לחדוני לקראת קלה בני שבת נקבלה ימין ושמאל תפרוצי ואת אדוני תריצי על ידי בן פרתי בני שמחה ונהגילה לחדוני לקראת קלה בני שבת נקבלה לחדוני לקראת קלה בני שבת נקבלה בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה ובצולה תוך עם סגולה בואי חלה לחדוני לקראת קלה בני שבת נקבלה לחדוני לקראת קלה בני שבת נקבלה.
So we remain standing for another moment. Hello. Come on up.
As these candles give light to all who behold them, so may we by our lives give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat v'shel Yom Tov.
Amen. Mazel tov. Thank you. Yes, I'll take that off you. Take a moment to turn to each other and wish each other Moedim besimcha, Chagim uzmanim besason, and Shabbat Shalom. Tonight, let our shelters be strung with the finest fruits of creation. Love, fertility, prosperity, wisdom. Let us promise to feed the hungry. Let our harvests bring peace. This is our prayer on this festival of Sukkot. As we turn to page 140 and the words of Mizmor Shir LeYom HaShabbat.
מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון.
Page 140.
מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. השבת טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון ולזמר לשמך עליון.
כי שימחתני אדוני בפועלך במעשה ידיך הנן. מה גדול מעשיך אדוני מאוד, גם תחום מחשבותיך. איש ברא
השבת טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון ולזמר לשמך עליון. צדיקה צמד יפרח כארץ בלבנון בלבנון שתולים בבן אדוני בחצרות אלוהינו יפריחו עוד ינון בשיבה דשנים ורעננים להגיד ישר אדוני צורי ולא עוולה תבוא.
Page 142, Shalom Aleichem. Debbie Friedman, when she wrote this version of Shalom Aleichem, she especially noted that at the end we say, Tzeitchem, go in peace. And she said, perhaps we should say, come in peace. And so we've changed the word to Shuvchem, return in peace. Page 142, Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malchei HaMelachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Chem leShalom, Malchei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malchei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malchei HaMelachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni שלום, מלכי השלום, מלכי עליון, מי מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. שלום עליכם, שלום עליכם, מלכי השרת, מלכי עליון, מי מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש, הקדוש ברוך הוא. שובכם, שובכם לשלום, מלכי השלום, מלכי עליון, מי מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. שלום עליכם, שלום עליכם, מלכי השרת, מלכי עליון, מי מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש, הקדוש ברוך הוא.
We rise on page 144 for the Chatzi Kaddish and the call to prayer.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
אמן.
והמן תברא וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכו בית ישראל.
בעגלה, בעגלה, ובזמן קריב.
ואמרו
אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעלם ולעל מעל מיה יתברך.
יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתהלל ויתהלל שמי לקודשה
בריחו
לילה מן כל בחטא ושירתה
תוש בחטא ונחמתה תמירן בעלמה.
ואמרו
אמן.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
Please be seated and join with me in the Hebrew on page 148. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, בחוכמה פותח שערים ובתבונה משנה עתים, ומחליף את הזמנים ומסדר את הכוכבים, במשמרותיהם ברקיע כרצונו. בורא יום ולילה גולל אור מפני חושך, וחושך מפני אור. ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, המריב ערבים. אהבת עולם בית ישראל, עמך אתה, תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו, בשוכבנו ובקומנו, נשיח בחוקיך, ונשמח בדברי תורתך, ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם
חיינו באורך ימינו ובהם נגי יומם ולילה ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד ברוך שכבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר חנוכי מצווך היום הלבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור דבר אל בני ישראל ואמרת עליהם ועשו להם ציצית על כנפי בגדיהם לדורותם ונתנו הציצית הכנף בטיט תכלת והיה לכם לציצית וראיתם אותו וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני ועשיתם אותם ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם אשר אתם זונים אחריהם למען תזכרו מה עשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם
Adonai Elohechem Emet. At the bottom of page 157. If you'll join with me. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, there is one God in heaven and on earth. The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way. Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, לא רע תהילות עושה פלא.
מלכותך ראו בניך, וכהים לפני משה ומרים, זיהי ענו ואמרו
אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר
הרכיב אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל. Page 160. השכיבנו, השכיבנו, אדוני אלוהינו, לשלום, לשלום.
השכיבנו, השכיבנו, אדוני אלוהינו, לשלום.
והעמידנו מלכנו לחיים ולשלום, ולשלום. השכיבנו, השכיבנו, אלוהינו, לשלום, וברוס עלינו, סוכת שלומך. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אלוהינו, לשלום. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Eternal One, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts, eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Ashkivenu, Ashkivenu, Eloheinu, Leshalom. Baruch Ata Adonai, הפורש סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים. Blessed are you, Eternal One, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem. On page 162, the people of Israel shall keep Shabbat. This is our covenant for all time. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. שמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם.
כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני, עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם.
וביום השביעי שבת וינבש, שבת וינבש, שבת וינבש.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. And so we rise on page 164 for the Amidal, the Tefillah, the central core part of our service. There is an addition that is inserted to the Amidal during Chol HaMoed Sukkot, which you'll find on page 174 in the midst of the Ritzei. I'll actually chant that. So we'll go from the first three benedictions as a community to silent prayer, and I'll bring us back in on 174. The Amidal. You will also find the melody is different because of the festive season.
Adonai sevatai tiftachu fi yagid tehilatecha Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el, Ha'gadol, Ha'gibor, Ve'anora, El Elyon, Gomel, Chasadim Tovim, Ve'koneh HaKol, וזוכר חזה אבות ואימהות ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה מלך עוזר ומושיע ומושיע ומגן ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי מתים עד הרב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מזריח השמש ומוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישוע, ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יעלוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, יעלה ויבוא, וזכר זיכרוננו וזיכרון כל עמך בית ישראל לפניך, להטוב עליכם ולחסד ורחמים ולחיים ולשלום, ביום חג הסוכות הזה. זוכרנו אדוני אלוהינו בוא לטובה, ופוקדנו בוא לברכה, והושיענו בוא לחיים.
רצון נמרי פי והגיון ליבי לפניך. Adonai tzuri vegoali. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, O God, my rock and my redeemer.
Erev Tov, good evening. Moadim l'simcha. It's a joy to see you and to conclude together a week-long study of 5 ikarim, 5 basic Jewish principles, which have engaged my attention and that of the congregation throughout the course of this week. Already, we've spoken about and studied Mekorot, study texts on the subject of kavod, of respect, and the importance Judaism ascribes to it to treat ourselves and others, even the stranger, with respect. We turned on day 2 to Shalom Bayit, to peace in the home, and following B'Tselem Elokim, the image of God, reminded of the teaching from the very beginning of Sefer Bereshit, the book of Genesis, where it says, B'Tselem Elohim bara otam, that the Adam HaRishon, the very first people, were created in God's image, a simple and profound and enduring idea which would have us recognize the divinity inside each and every person. Last night, during the daily daven, I took up the 4th subject, known as Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh Lazeh, and focused for a few moments on communal responsibility, our mutuality or joint responsibility that we have for one another as Jews. And tonight, I take pleasure in sharing with you some of the seminal texts associated with the idea of Shmirat HaLashon, the use of language. You guys want to come down here and join us? That's the way. I love this topic, and I recall amongst other texts the story of a well-known rabbi of his day who had a servant, an assistant, who was using Lashon Hora, inappropriate speech, and the rabbi was determined to teach him a lesson that he would remember. So what did he do? He dispatched his servant to the local shuk, to the market, and said, I want you to bring back for me the most delectable, the most tender, and most enjoyable cut of meat that you can find at the market. And he brought back a lashon, a tongue. That was a delicacy. To each his own, I say. And no sooner that he had returned that the rabbi dispatched him with yet another assignment, and he said, I want you to go back to the shuk, to the market, and I want you to bring back the most detestable, the most rank, the most awful meat that you can imagine. And he went back to the market, and what did he bring back? Tongue. The rabbi took the opportunity, once the servant had returned to him, to explain that everything's in the power of the tongue. A tongue can be an instrument of enormous kindness and goodness and sweetness, and a tongue can be barbed and mean-spirited and unkind. It's all in the tongue. And that will serve as our point of departure as I refer you to the text that I've provided for you. The book of Proverbs, Mishle says, death and life are in the power of the tongue. No less an authority than the Chofetz Chaim, Rabbi Kagan, who passed away at the age of 95 in the early part of the 20th century in Eretz Yisrael. He was the mumche. He was the expert, the maven with respect to all things Lashon Hora and Rechilut, as we'll see. In his introduction to his work, Chofetz Chaim, he wrote, first we must know the principles of the halachot, that is the laws of Lashon Hara and Rechilut. And he goes on to define, for the first time for us, Lashon Hara, that is to speak disparagingly against another, and Rechilut, to be a tale-bearer, spreading evil news and speaking badly about others. And he makes sure that we know right from the get-go that Lashon Hara, inappropriate speech, and Rechilut, tale-bearing, is forbidden even if what you say may be the truth. Also, the prohibition of Lashon Hara and Rechilut, he goes on to say, applies both in the object's presence and not in his presence. That is, it's all the same, because usually what goes out there comes around and people learn about it anyway. There's no difference between speaking and receiving Lashon Hara. So, if you thought that if I just keep myself clear of speaking inappropriately, I'm off the hook, well, think again. That even if we're party to it and receiving that which we know to be inappropriate, we're also at fault, an agent of Lashon Hora. A receiver of Lashon Hora, he goes on to say, is one who believes in his heart what is told him by his friend, even if he does not abet him in the telling, but only believes in his heart the Lashon Hara and Rechilut that he has heard. Let's go on, please, to a later text called Orchot Tzadikim. That's our text number. Oh, I beg your pardon. Well, it should be number 3 that we're going to. Where is it? I'm going to turn to page. Do you have a number 3, or was the copy done poorly? It's missing. So let me fill in the blanks for you. The third text that I have here gives 5 categories of Lashon Hara. Speech that causes disputes due to he said or she said, for example. Speech that is harmful or derogatory, specifically that which is patently untrue. Speech which causes emotional pain, physical distress, or financial loss. Indeed, the rabbis seem to conclude that speech poses a mortal danger, either whether you're speaking it, hearing it, or transmitting it. As it says, death and life are in the power of the tongue, as we heard earlier from Proverbs. And then in the Babylonian Talmud, in Masechet Arichin, it says, a person's tongue is more powerful than the sword. And this is, of course, typical of rabbis. They're very hyperbolic. Is it really more powerful than a sword? They go on to explain a sword can kill somebody who is nearby, whilst a tongue can cause the death of someone even though that person may be far away. Very interesting. This also from Arichin, from the very same source, goes on to say, according to Chazal, that is our sages of blessed memory, they say, gossip, we have to be careful of the gossip rags, right? Gossip slays three people, the one who speaks the gossip, the one who listens to it, and the one about whom the gossip is spoken. So we have to be very, very attentive. And then another party comes in and concludes even more so, and the one who listens to the gossip is guiltier than the one who speaks it. Why do you suppose the rabbis add this caveat, that the one who listens to the gossip is guiltier than the one who speaks it? Any ideas? It's a bit like the mouse in the hole. You know, if the mouse steals a piece of cheese but has nowhere to go with it, it's not so gefährlich. The hole is the one that gives the mouse security that he can get away with it. We cannot allow the gossip to spread. We need to be something like a blanket to the fire of gossip, lashon hara, or rechilut. The book of Leviticus insists that we not go around as talebearers, as some of you may recall hearing in Leviticus 19, which is the holiness code, Parshat Kedoshim. It says, Lo telech rachil be'amecha, lo ta'amod al dam re'echa. You shall not go up and down as a talebearer among your people, neither shall you stand idly by the blood of your neighbors. And our rabbis suggest that the smuchin, the proximity of the blood of your neighbors, juxtaposed with the tale-bearing, is more proof that to speak harshly of others is tantamount to shedding blood. All right, I want to pick up in your text, because I'm sure you have some of these. Do you have a number 8 or 9? Do you have a number 9? I did a swell job copying this, didn't I? You have 15 and 16? You have 10. Okay, 10 is good. Well, 10 is really interesting. I call it jive talking because I've always liked the Bee Gees. And the jive talking says that lashon hara is not just one thing, and it's not just rechilut. It's actually possible to categorize these even more specifically. We have evil talk, or lashon hara, that we've already discussed some, but then there are what's known ona'at devarim, words that are hurtful, words that can cause more pain than any weapon. And the Torah specifies that the greatest pain in this world is busha, is embarrassment, and that one who embarrasses another so the person blushes, displacing the blood to that person's cheeks, is judged as if they've spilled blood. And then there's talk, gnevat da'at, deceptive talk, fooling people with words, asking a salesperson, how much is this item, without the intent of actually buying it or not having the resources to buy it. Have you ever heard this? You go into a store and you lead the salesperson to believe that, you're on the hook. He's going to have a sale, but in fact you can't. That's deceptive talk, gnevat da'at. There is another category called nivul peh. Do you have that in your sheets? No? It's number 10. Okay, nivul peh is what here is described as disgusting speech. Included in this category are curse words, off-color jokes, or negative innuendo. Language, and the Hebrew language, even the Yiddish language, is known by what name? Lashon Kodesh, or Loshen Kodesh in the Yiddish. And so our rabbis advise us to be careful that we don't debase ourselves or our listeners with crude words or idle chatter or impure speech. I want to refer you to number 13, should you have it, because it brings the whole subject of Lashon Hara up to current times. What is a keyboard warrior? What's meant by keyboard warrior? Jackie? Someone who has too much time in their hands. And how do they fill that time? Sending emails, sending letters to the editor, posting on social media. In a text called False Facts and True Rumors, Lashon Hara in Contemporary Culture, we're introduced to a term that is called the Disinhibition Effect. Why do we guard our words? Carefully, right? There's a notion in Jewish tradition that says you're allocated only so many words when you are born, and you must use them judiciously, because when you run out of words, you die. How's that make you feel? You're going to be a little more Spartan with your choice of words? Well, what's happened in this article, as it explains, is that people have become emboldened through their anonymity and developed what's called a disinhibition effect. This refers to the reality, and I think you'll all agree, that one who is operating behind the protection of a computer screen often can discard proper inhibitions, moral standards, sensitivity to others, empathy towards others, and become capable of egregious interpersonal behaviors that they would otherwise abhor and never use in polite company. Do you think this is a thing? It's totally a thing. I want to finish with a couple of additional things. I find this subject, like the other ones that we treated this week, absolutely fascinating and bedrock stuff. Let's look at the passage number 14. Do you have that? This side of the room has it, that side of the room says no. Okay. Here, there are three different kinds of Lashon Hara that Rashi proposes. And what Rashi proposes, we are obliged to listen to. Maybe not agree, but to listen to nonetheless. The commentators explain, he says, that tractate to mean that a modest scholar is allowed to declare that he is unfamiliar with a tractate of the Mishnah in order not to parade his learning. You don't profess knowledge of something because you might embarrass others who don't possess it. It says that it is okay to say, and this is a little white lie, that I don't know this, familiar with it, or understand it, even though you might, which is fascinating. Rashi translates a word called purya as bed, another area where one can deflect the true meaning and come up with something of a white lie. What does he say? He understands this word purya as bed to mean that if a scholar is asked intimate questions regarding one's marital life, he needn't answer it truthfully. The Tosafot, the authorities of a certain school, commenting on Rashi's point, find it hard to believe that such questions about one's intimacy would be addressed to the scholar or anyone else, and they understand Purya to be connected with the festival of Purim. The point is that there are exemptions, that you don't have to tell the truth in every instance. It's not so very different than this notion of that one is obliged to preserve one's life, but for the exception for idolatry and incest and murder. Here, one is required to tell the truth and to speak properly, but not always fully with respect to certain things. And the last allowance is given for hospitality. That is, a person, it says here, hospitality is understood to mean that a person who has been treated generously by one's host may decide not to tell the truth about his reception if he fears that as a result, the host will be embarrassed by unwelcome guests. Like, it's interesting. You can't give a pitchon peh. You can't give an opportunity through your words, though they are not ungenerous, unkind, or untrue. But you can, by saying too much, give other people the opportunity to say something unpleasant, uncomplimentary, or unkind. For example, I might say of Robert, Robert is a hardworking member of TBI. He has a long track record of service, and he always has a smile on his face. Have I said anything unkind or untrue about Robert? Absolutely not. But that doesn't mean somebody on the other side of the room might say, you know what, you don't know everything you should know about Robert. I happen to know. So you see, the standard that applies to our language is so high that even saying something complimentary or nice and justified and true can be an opportunity for someone else to seize on that and to say something which allows for Lashon Hara to be born. Okay, so anyway, I'm glad that we've had this opportunity to share these few moments together on the subject of Lashon Hara and Rechilut. I'm sorry about the... Okay, I'll do better next time. I want to wish everybody a good Shabbos and hope that you'll take the opportunity to join us, as yesterday's rabbi's message indicated, to come along and finish the song that we began singing at Rosh Hashanah. You know, one shouldn't stop at Yom Kippur. It's a sober, serious, difficult day. Let's let go together on this Sunday evening as well as on Monday morning. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Please rise on page 586 as we come to our concluding prayers and the Aleinu. 586.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו תוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
We remain standing for a few more moments as we turn our thoughts to those who have departed from this earth. Our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, so we meditate on the meaning of love and of loss, of life and of death. This week we think especially in the period of Shiva of Israel Forbes, Keith Hellman and Ruth Rees. And the Shloshim of Albert Ben Tata, Eva Mandel, Estelle Redlick, Richard Rose, Jamie Silver, Naomi Tippett, Dorothea Trop-Bass, John Troy, Joy Waller, and the yahrzeits of Eugene Jelinek, John Trigoning, Tony Kaplan, Sid Langbart, Julia Turin, Marie Gold, Andor Herman, Stephen Indelicato, Russell Jacobson, James Abrahams, Morris Berra, Wilma Esser, Lyle Jacobs, Armin Windholtz, Reuben Cohen, Raphael Ruttman, Dorothy Wax, Millie Shapira Mandel, Simon Scheinberg. You may wish to add to this list of names as I look around the room.
Cantor, Friends of Israel join with its citizens and the state in mourning the loss of two of its young soldiers in the past week, Sergeant Noah Lazar and Commander Ido Baruch, the first only 18 years old, and Ido Baruch, 21 years old, who was remembered this week for his devotion, his love, and his optimism.
To these, we also think of all those dying so unnecessarily in Ukraine. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be for a blessing, as we join together on page 598 in the words of Kaddish Yatom. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabba, balma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, b'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabba mavorach leolam ulalme almaya. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה ברכו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דע אמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלום רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us, to all of Israel, and to all of humanity. And we say, Amen. Please be seated as Jackie Magid will share a few announcements from the Board of Governance.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Board of Governance, welcome to all of those attending this evening's service, either here in person or online. Thank you to the wonderful person who made my announcement sheet. Before I make the announcements, Temple Beth Israel acknowledges that the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples are the first peoples of Australia. The Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation are the traditional owners of the land on which our Temple Beth Israel is located, for which they have never ceded sovereignty. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present. After the conclusion of the service, please join Rabbi Roebuck in the Sukkot outside for Kiddush. Tomorrow morning from 9 a.m, Rabbi Roebuck is back in the Sukkah for a special session of Parashat HaShavua, looking at the Megillat Kohelet. On Sunday, please come one and all for the fun and festivities of Simchat Torah as we close out the high holidays with family activities from 4 p.m, our Ma'ariv service at 6:15 p.m, and Torah celebration to follow at 7 p.m. Monday morning's Shacharit Sheminei Atzeret service with Yizkor will begin at 10 a.m. On Tuesday evening this week and next, from 7:30, we invite all community members to join our Tribe Education program for a two-part series on Jewish history with Mark Ellison. We're also very excited that our wonderful guest educators, Dr. Simon Halloway and Dr. David Slucky, will be returning for Term 4 with courses on Tuesday and Thursday nights respectively, commencing. Dr. Holliday will provide a taste of Talmudic study, while Dr. Slucky's course is all about Jews and comedy. So bring your sense of humour. Book your place now via the Back to School, Back to Shul page on the TBI website. And please, a reminder to fill and return your Mazon bags to TBI by next week. We are in need of non-perishable food items and toiletries. More bags, if required, are available for collection from the foyer. To those of you who have already given so generously both to the Mazon Drive and to the TBI Kol Nidre Appeal, thank you. If you would like to make a donation to either appeal, please visit the Mazon website or the TBI website to donate online, or pick up a donation slip from the foyer or contact the TBI office. Please remember to return your prayer books to the trolleys, and please join us for Kiddush at the conclusion of this service. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Jackie. And how good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day.
הנה מה טוב ומנעים שברכים גם יחד. 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 How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. הנה מה טוב ומנעים שברכים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומנעים שברכים גם יחד. שלום עליכם, סלאם עליכום. שלום עליכם, סלאם עליכום. שלום עליכם, סלאם עליכום. שלום עליכם, סלאם עליכום. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. הנה מה טוב ומנעים שברכים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומנעים שברכים גם יחד.
We will be making Kiddush and Motzi in the Sukkot, in the Sukkah. So for those of you online, we wish you Shabbat Shalom, Moadim B'Simcha, Chagim Uzmanim B'Sason till